Warning, the following video is even more cringy than normal. It's about Disney princess stuff, and if you're not a lifelong Disney weeb like me, you may just want to bail out now. No one will judge you.
This is Automated Thought.
So hey, if you follow me on Twitter, then you've probably seen this character on my timeline quite a bit recently. And you might be wondering, what's the deal? Why does he like this cartoon character so much? Well, her name is Cassandra. Cassandra. Her name is Cassandra, and she's from Disney's Tangled the series, which was later renamed Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, which was then renamed Live, Die, Repeat, which was then renamed The Erotic Awakening of R, and now I believe it's simply called Rapunzel, Birds of Prey. Anyway, the thing about Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure is that it's a bright, sunshiny, song-filled cartoon series that is so incredibly well made that it's better than Game of Thrones. And I'm being 100% serious when I say that. When it comes to fantasy TV series set in medieval kingdoms that involve knights and dragons, Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure is better than Game of Thrones. Ever since Game of Thrones fell apart in the last 3 seasons and it just kind of collapsed in on itself and revealed nothing inside, no story, just a rotten, hollow core of nothingness. Whereas the Tangled series is incredibly well planned out, and it actually leaves you feeling something, apart from a vague sense of baffled consternation.
I know that some of my views are radical, but I'm confident that history will vindicate me. Better Call Saul is superior to Breaking Bad, the Star Wars sequel trilogy is possibly the best of all 3 Star Wars trilogies, and Game of Thrones is simply not as good as Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure.
And you know, I had no idea that this show and this character existed until very recently. Man, I think back to like a year ago, while I was slogging through that last awful season of Game of Thrones, Disney Channel kids were watching the epic, heartbreaking Season 2 cliffhanger finale, Destinies Collide, where Cassandra seizes the Moonstone and becomes a god. I think that's where her fandom really began to develop. Like a lot of people, I first heard about this character when the video for her song, Nothing Left to Lose, when that went viral. I had no idea what this was, but I saw it, and I was like, oh my god, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Just inject this into my veins. I need this. Then one of my patrons asked me to draw the character, and I started looking into her and what she was all about. And I discovered this whole community on Twitter who they completely stan the character of Cassandra. She has a fan base that is absolutely rabidly adoring. But why? Why do we love her so damned much? Why does this new character suddenly mean more to me than, Wolverine, Jean Grey, Indiana Jones, and a million other characters? What are the reasons that we love her so much? Well, there's a lot of them, and I'd like to take a look at all of them right now.
Number 1, cool design.
This isn't rocket science. She has a really cool character design, and a lot of the animation on her is just inspired, just mwah.
Number 2, she's probably a lesbian.
It's still pretty amazing to me that cartoons these days are actually introducing gay and lesbian characters. In the world I grew up in, that was pretty much unthinkable. Well, except for Bugs Bunny, of course. I mean, that guy was a freak. He swung every which way. Nowadays, you have Korra hooking up with Asami, you have Ruby and Sapphire getting married on Steven Universe, and it's like no big thing. Now, technically, since this is a Disney show, it's never explicitly stated that Cassandra's a lesbian. But pretty much all of her fans view her that way. Seems pretty obvious that she has a crush on her best friend, and she really hates her boyfriend. There was even this early episode where it appeared that Cassandra was secretly dating some weird hipster guy, and when her friends found out, they were all like, "Oh, that's so cute! Cassandra's dating someone! I never thought Cassandra would date a man!" But then in the end, it turns out that the whole thing was a ruse. She was just staking him out because she knew that he was a terrorist, and she beats the crap out of him. And the audience is left with this impression that Cassandra and men just don't mix. And her self-image is itself very masculine. In this sweet, cuddly Disney kingdom where every other woman appears to be a princess or a housewife, Cassandra just wants to put on armor and be a knight. She's a complete tomboy lesbian, and it would be kinda naive to look at her any other way. In a few more years, having gay and lesbian characters is just going to be normal, but we're still at the stage where it's kind of transgressive, and people like it. It's interesting. People love Cassandra because she's an outcast, misunderstood, filled with hidden passion of the love that dare not speak its name.
Number 3, dynamic character arc.
Everyone knows that if you want to have a character to have a great story, they have to start out very small. They have to have humble beginnings. And when the audience first meets Cassandra, she just seems to be this side character. It's like she's just there to be the straight man and the wet blanket, the hectoring voice of reason, and to verbally spar with Eugene. But then, as the series goes on, she just gets more and more interesting. She becomes one of the major characters and pretty much the main antagonist of the whole series. It's like she starts off as Samwise, and then she becomes Jaime Lannister, burning her hand and everything. And then she becomes Boromir, and then she becomes twacked out evil Lady Galadriel, and then she becomes
Sauron.
And she ends the series as Aragorn. That's a heck of an arc for one character, and it's just so well done. I love it. So everything I've said so far is pretty obvious, but there's one final massive reason why I think this character is so beloved to people.
Number 4. Cassandra's struggle is a perfect mirror of the frustrations felt by the millennial generation in a world dominated by income inequality.
So, okay, this is where I start reaching and get pretty speculative. I'm not claiming that Cassandra's creators ever had a buzzword like income inequality anywhere in their minds when they developed this character. They may have, they may not have, but it still resonates that way all the same. Now, stories about the tension between royalty and the serfs, the haves and have-nots, these stories are as old as time. But here in the Western world, it's been just about 12 years since this eternal tension kind of came back to the fore and reared its head again, and we got all these terms like 99%, income inequality, the 1%, blah blah blah. It's just something that's in the air. You can see it in movies like The Dark Knight Rises, with all of its little references to A Tale of Two Cities. The terms make their way into many other shows that really have nothing to do with social stratification.
We are not wealthy people. We drive cheap, terrible cars. We are the 99%ers, and we are shit on enough, and we are certainly not going to be shit on by the likes of you.
The best and most recent example is, of course, the Oscar Best Picture winning movie Parasite. A beautiful movie, a fabulous movie, and it takes place in this world where there's this stark dividing line between the rich and the poor. There's a rich family, there's a poor family. And it's not some simplistic, rich people bad, poor people good type thing. Quite the opposite. It is itself kind of a dark fairy tale about what happens when people are trapped in this world where one set of characters has nothing and they have to fight for everything, and another set of characters has everything, and so they try to defend it against any kind of incursion. If you haven't seen Parasite yet, definitely see it. It's streaming for free on Hulu. Check it out. So okay, how does this all relate to Cassandra and Rapunzel's tangled adventure? You see, the thing about Cassandra is that her unrequited passion for her best friend, it's a big part of her character, but it's not the main part. Her main driving force, the whole thing behind her character, is her overwhelming sense of frustration. She has this resentment towards her best friend, who's a princess and exists on the higher level, and as a result, she's very sunny and thinks that everything is fine all the time. There's no problems. But for Cassandra, the orphan who grew up with nothing, to her there is a problem. She has all this incredible rage and bitterness that simply has no outlet in her society. I mean, take a look at the lyrics to her 3 signature songs. They're all about being unappreciated, being screwed over, and feeling like you're never going to get your chance in life to achieve what you could. That's another reason why we love Cassandra so much. She has not 1, not 2, but 3 incredible power ballads. What other character has 3 marquee tunes? Okay, yeah, her. But anyway, Cassandra has this lifelong hang-up about her place in the world, and I think a lot of young people today feel the exact same way. I know that I feel it a lot of the time. I'm a little bit older, I'm Generation X, but when it comes to being economically oppressed, I like to think I was a little bit ahead of the curve, seeing as I was born into a family with no money, no connections, no nothing. Overall, I'm doing okay, but my entire adult life, I kind of wondered where I would be in life if I'd maybe had a few lucky breaks, if I didn't have to spend my whole college years washing dishes and working myself to death. What if, after graduating, I'd had some kind of home to go back to? Hell, maybe I'd be working for Disney right now. It's impossible to say. But even though I was kind of personally unlucky in life, even I can remember the world as it was before. I was lucky enough to grow up in a world where, if I wanted to, I could quit my crappy job at any time and I could get another one the next day. Even if it was just working in a restaurant or a gas station. I could move to a new apartment pretty easily and the rent wasn't that bad. Just those 2 little tiny things that I took for granted, kids today, they don't even have that. and that's very depressing. I think that's the main reason why I love the character of Cassandra so much. She spends her entire life working, but she's stuck in this dead-end job as a handmaiden, changing sheets, cooking dishes, arranging flowers, whatever. And it's not like her goals are very lofty. What she wants in life is to be a royal guard, which might be her stepping stone to being a hero and achieving something. And it's kind of interesting. In shows like this, you don't really think of a guard as being an important position. Sometimes they're just cannon fodder. You just hire some guy and put a spear in his hand and wait for the villain to kill him. But you gotta give it to the Kingdom of Corona. Being a royal guard is like a big deal. They have very stringent requirements. But even though Cassandra meets those requirements, she still never really gets her chance. Only a little bit, like she gets to be like an intern. Whenever she gets to be on guard duty, it's always like a temporary thing. In a medieval fantasy kingdom like Corona, everyone's just kind of stuck in their place where they were born. Like take this guy, this big fat disgusting oaf, terrible person, just an awful guy. He runs the frickin' candy shop like his 10 ancestors before him. He's gonna run the candy shop his whole life, that's all he'll ever do, he's just stuck in one place. And Cassandra's stuck in her place, at the very bottom. All this stuff I'm talking about, the sense of the society that surrounds the characters, the creators are not necessarily thinking about any of this consciously or making it intentional. Creators just create in accordance with what they know, with what they see around them. Like, have you ever heard of a movie called The First Star Wars Movie? When you look at how Luke Skywalker begins his journey in the first Star Wars, it's interesting. He has this middle-class lifestyle. It's boring, but it's secure. And his uncle wants to keep him down on the moisture farm because Luke is a valuable worker. Whatever Luke does on the Tatooine moisture farm, it's valuable. It's important. But when he leaves home and he joins the rebellion, the minute he gets to the rebel base, they shake his hand and they're like, "Hey, kid, you can fly? Great. You got a job. Here's your X-Wing. You're a pilot now. Big mission coming up."
This is just part of the American mythology that I grew up with. Hey kid, you don't like the way your life is going? Just take the $300 you have in your pocket and move to New York or San Francisco. Good things will happen. These days, it's probably not that simple.
It's not like Luke showed up at the rebel base and someone told him, yeah, X-Wing pilot. There's only a few openings right now, and we pretty much already have candidates lined up. But if you leave your resume, we'll get back to you as soon as something changes. Okay, have a good day. Bye. That would have never happened because that kind of sentiment, that feeling, it just wasn't in the air in 1977. The world that Luke Skywalker inhabits, it just naturally reflects the baby boomer era of the time. Me, I've spent my whole life hearing baby boomers talk about how great the world used to be, and I've heard dozens of stories that sound something like this.
So yeah, I didn't really know where I was going in life. Me and my friends were just going out drinking, having a good time. Then I get this job in their office as like a carbon paper boy. I'm in charge of pencils and paper clips and stuff. And one day the boss says, "Hey kid, you want to come take a crack at this?" Next thing I know, I'm moving up. They make me a branch manager. They open up the new division in California. I move out there making 6 figures, get a house, wife, kids, the whole shebang. It was pretty good. Hey, how come your generation doesn't do that, huh? I mean, that's the problem with you kids these days. You're just lazy.
I've heard that. Have you heard that? And I don't think millennials are lazy. They're this whole generation of hardworking, technologically savvy kids, but they live in a world where it's very hard to get ahead. And I think a lot of them feel just like Cassandra. In the first season, you get that sense of frustration about her, and her frustration only grows way deeper in season 2. It's pretty brutal. When she's back home in Corona, her best friend likes to brag that she's the best sword fighter in the kingdom, and she might be. But then when she leaves home and goes out into the wider world, she encounters these characters like Adira and Hector, these super professional fighters who make her look kind of like a chump. She goes from being a little fish to being an even littler fish. When she meets Adira, she immediately distrusts her, supposedly because she has doubts about her true motives, but the real reason she hates Adira is because Adira is just way better than her at everything, and has achieved everything that she ever wanted, seemingly without effort. She's just that good at everything all the time. And then things get even harder for her after she burns her hand trying to save Rapunzel. Her sword hand. This is that Jaime Lannister thing I was talking about. She already didn't feel that she was good enough, and then suddenly what she does have is taken away from her. It kind of reminds me of some other artists that I know online before they ever get their big break. They start suffering from tendinitis or tennis elbow or arthritis, something like that, or other health problems. It's pretty devastating, and so it's understandable that Cassandra's frustration grows and grows until the end of Season 2, when she has that one chance to seize power, and she can't help herself. She grabs the Moonstone because it's the one chance in her entire life when she can suddenly get ahead of everybody else. Oh, what a devastating finale. Brilliant, brilliant! And that all leads to the third and final season, where Cassandra becomes a dark, sexy god. She becomes a horrible villain, falls into darkness, and then is redeemed at the end. Which, I haven't even seen the third season yet. I'm dying to see it. I could have watched that on some dodgy streaming site, but I refused. I'm waiting for that shit to hit Disney Plus so I can watch it in full quality. I've already heard all the songs from it. I pretty much know what happens, but I am looking forward to it so much you have no idea. Because like I said, I am neck deep in the Cassandra fandom. She's instantly become one of my most favorite characters of all time. And hell, starting tonight when I'm done recording this video, I'm going to start some fan art drawings of her, because I've only drawn her that one time. And when I did, I didn't even really know who the character was. There is a lot of Cassandra fan art in my future. Oh yes. Maybe you feel the same way. If you're watching this video, maybe you already like the character, or you're just sitting there saying, man, this guy thinks about cartoon characters too much. Like, what's his problem? And yeah, I got problems. We all got problems these days. We're still living in a very difficult and unequal world. Right now, just this month as I speak, as I'm recording this video, the United States and the rest of the world is facing an economic crisis, and we still don't know the scope of it and how it's going to play out. The one thing we do know is that the world is still ruled by rich assholes, and they've made it very clear that they're going to take as much taxpayer money as they can to bail themselves out while leaving everyone else out to dry. The millennial generation I've been talking about this whole time, they got hit with the financial crisis 10 years ago, and they're getting hit with another one now. It's not fair. Life is not fair. As for me, I'm still kind of in the same place that I've been for a long time. Like Cassandra, I'm working my ass off every day. I don't party, I don't drink, I don't really have many hobbies except, my only hobby is working. Working on videos and working on drawings. I'm not full of myself, but I like to think I do pretty okay. I can draw stuff like this, and this, and this, or this, and a lot of people think it's pretty good, but I'm still in a world where there's a million of me. There's a million people like me who are very talented, very hardworking, but we feel like we haven't achieved what we might have achieved if the world around us were a little bit easier. Until then, we have Cassandra. We love her because she has a cool design. We love her because she's probably a lesbian. We love her because she has a great character arc. And we love her because she has that frustration that we all feel. She is our lady of righteous indignation and butthurt resentment. And we love her a lot. As far as anyone knows, her story's over, and we'll never find out what happens to Cassandra after she rides off into the sunset. A lot of fans are hoping that there'll be like some kind of spin-off series for her. That'd be a long shot, but hey, you never know. If not, we have her in 3 seasons of one of the best cartoons I've ever seen, and that'll just have to be enough. I wish that I could personally thank everyone who was involved in creating the show, because let's face it, they could have done something very typical and saccharine and probably still gotten paid.
Seriously, they say the only reason this show got greenlit in the first place is because some suit at Disney decided that Rapunzel needed new outfits for the Tangled merch, and they accidentally gave birth to a masterpiece.
They went above and beyond the Call of Duty, and they've shown us once again that execution is everything. Alright, this video's gone on way longer than I thought it would. Peace out!